Hey everybody, it's me, Steve SCHNEE, the CD Junkie. On this episode of CD Junkie, I am going to be talking about a CD, but I really want to focus on music from the 1980s, and especially KROQ, the radio station. Now, my 80s music is a little bit different than other people's. Like, I prefer to classify 80s music, instead of saying 80 to 89, I sort of move the meter over a little bit and go 78 to about 86. That's my favorite period of music. Of all time. Sure, I have a show called This is Ski Lodge, and I focus on music from the 60s and early 70s. That's the music that helped to formulate my taste in music. I became a pop kid, a kid who loves hooks and melody, a kid who loves to hear songs of heartbreak. I remember in second grade, I heard the song 500 Miles by the Journeymen. I know a few other people have done that song, but I heard it by the Journeymen and it almost made me cry. I was second grade and I could feel that hurt and that pain in the song. And that's really when I realized that I have this emotional connection to music. I didn't know it was an emotional connection to music. I just knew that song was very sad. So then, I was raised listening to the Beatles, Neil Diamond, the Monkees, Glenn Campbell, all these people. And in the 70s, I got into the Osmonds and the Jackson 5. I was already into Badfinger. And then by, 77 or so, I was really into Queen. And then in 1978, I'd say February, March, I watched the show because it was going to show Queen videos. Don't worry, I'm getting to the 80s here, folks. Okay, the show was hosted by Leon Russell, long white hair, long white beard, wearing a hat and sunglasses. And he's introducing these bands that have these videos that they're going to play before getting to Queen. It was almost like these videos before the Queen videos were opening acts in a way. And that's when I discovered the Jam. Here's these guys, three guys up on stage. They're all wearing suits, skinny ties, playing Rickenbacker guitar, Rickenbacker bass. My mind was, holy crap, this is it. This is what I want to listen to. Now, I knew punk rock existed, but at that point, like I said, this is early 78. I hadn't really heard too much except maybe one or two Ramones songs. But this is the first time I connected with something, the Jam, February, March 1978. Then I loved The Clash and Kate Bush. And by the time Queen came on, I just kept thinking, my allowance is coming up in a couple days. I'm going to buy the Jam. And that's what started my fascination with mod, power pop, synth pop, post-punk, all the stuff that was melodic and hook. Like I said, I'm a pop kid. I want the hooks, but I also want the heartaches. And, I love sad songs. There's not a lot in post-punk or punk or whatever, but you're going to find some stuff in there. You're going to find those songs that affect you, like the Journeyman's 500 Miles affected me. And then, at that point, here I was, it was 78. So I hadn't even turned 15. I was 14 years old. And I spent every allowance buying these albums. As long as the group had "the" in front of it, I wanted to hear more music like that. So, of course, I bought the Jam and the Clash. And then I was buying things like the Undertones and the Records and The Last, which blew my mind. That's the album. LA Explosion by The Last introduced me to the world of indie music, because up until that point, I was only buying stuff on major labels here in the U.S., but I was buying the Records, Bram Tchaikovsky, Yachts, all this hook, Buzzcocks. Oh my God. I love to say the word Buzzcocks because it sounds like it's nasty, and you're 15 years old, and your parents might yell at you, but it's a band name. And then KROQ. At first I felt alone listening to all this music because none of my friends were. All of my friends were listening to Journey and Foreigner and Styx and things like this. And I'm not knocking that music because I like a lot of it except Styx. So what happened is KROQ, I remember one of the first songs I ever heard on KROQ was Warm Leatherette by The Normal. And I thought it was Neil Innes from Bonzo Dog Band because he had that same type of drawl delivery. And I was going, whoa, what is this? Of course, The Normal doing Warm Leatherette, that ended up to be Daniel Miller, the guy that set up the label Mute Records and started the career of course, their most famous artist, Depeche Mode. But this was weird synth pop, but it was catchy. And then I started going in that avenue. Oh, Kraftwerk. What are they like? Oh, Depeche Mode. This band, that band. What are they like? But KROQ started playing this music, and I suddenly didn't feel alone anymore. Sure, I had crushes on practically every girl that I met. Every girl that would talk to me. Sometimes I wish, oh, please let them go out with me. But I was too embarrassed, too insecure to even ask them out. So instead of going out with these beautiful, wonderful girls, I spent a lot of time at home listening to these great albums that had, of course, a lot of, love songs that would heal my broken heart, or whatever, Shoes and 2020 Plimsolls, all these great melodic bands that sang about love and heartbreak. And they sort of were telling the story of my life at the time. Look, I was only 15, 16, 17 years old, but everything felt so real. So sure, when your heart breaks at 15, 16 years old, it's no big deal. You'll get over it, but maybe you won't. And when you're that age, you don't know if you're going to get over it. I mean, to this day, I still have problems talking to women, because back then I was rejected so many times. I figured, they're just going to reject me. So whatever. So yeah, I still deal with that stuff. Yeah. Okay. So maybe a therapist would help, but no, right now, KROQ was what I needed back then. And because it introduced me to the fact that there were so many people that listened to that kind of music, just like me. There were people that, oh my gosh, they're playing Madness, who I loved. And, oh, they're playing Split Ends. Oh, they're playing Squeeze. They're playing The Jam. They're playing the Undertones. They're playing Adam and the Ants. They're playing all this stuff. So all of a sudden I'm realizing that a lot of my friends are into this music, maybe because of KROQ, but it was such a wonderful time, because you're starting to connect with people. You're starting to realize that you're not alone in your feelings or your passion for music. And a lot of these people who I still love to this day, Chuck, Fred, Jeff George, Jeanette, Matt. These are people that I would go record shopping with all the time. We'd go to Music Market and Camel Records and Up Another Octave and Tower and Licorice Pizza and blah, 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 blah. They've grown up. Okay. They've matured. I'm still, in my bedroom going, God, how come that girl didn't go out with me in junior high school? Well, here, let's put on The Clash and we'll listen to London Calling again for the 150th time, which still sounds great 150 times later. I tell you this story because somewhere along the line, a lot of you, or maybe just a few of you, have experienced the same thing. Just replace the bands I talk about and the radio station and the era, and just replace it with your experiences. I think a lot of us experience this. My friends grew up. I have a YouTube channel. What does that tell you? I don't know. But it just tells me I'm too goofy for words. But KROQ introduced me to the fact that other people dug this music, and all of a sudden, new wave and synth pop and power pop and post punk, it was all the rage. You were hearing Oingo Boingo blaring out of record stores or out of cars. You were hearing Devo. You were hearing this amazing music, OMD, Depeche Mode. All this stuff was everywhere. And just a year or two before that, 79, 80, 81, you weren't hearing a lot of it around Garden Grove High School. The year I graduated, I played music at a dance. People didn't get it. I played XTC. I played this, this really upbeat, danceable stuff. And people were looking at me like I was crazy. And it was like the worst dance of the year. Thank you very much. But the next year, everybody was listening to this music. Now, had nothing to do with me, had everything to do with KROQ, because it brought people together. It introduced people to new music. And KROQ and radio stations like it became very important. I don't want to say disaffected youth, but very important to people searching for something exciting and new. And it was a wonderful time. Now, you can go back and you can listen to this in hindsight and say, oh, well, that's post-punk, that's this. Back then, I don't remember too many of these genres having terms until a couple years later. I mean, maybe synth pop, maybe power pop, but that was more like in the early 80s. I didn't know that 2020 or the Plimsolls were power pop at the time. I don't think that I realized that until about 81, 82, something like that, that it had a term that was easy when you talk to your friends. Oh yeah, power pop, synth pop, post-punk, blah, blah, blah. And it was exciting to hear all the stuff off of KROQ. I mean, to listen to Jed the Fish or to April Whitney or to Richard Blade or to any of those DJs and have them play, oh my gosh, Duran Duran, never heard Duran Duran before. I remember hearing Planet Earth and Girls on Film, and then being in LA with my brother Mike and our friend Rick Infelt driving past the Roxy and going, hey, tonight's the first night Duran Duran is playing in town. Let's stop by and see him at the Roxy. But then we saw the line of people to get in and went down the block, and we go, nope, not going to do that. But I did see a lot of great bands back then. I saw XTC. I saw The Jam. I saw A Flock of Seagulls. I saw Split Ends twice. I saw Squeeze a few times. Such a glorious time to be young. And in those days, it was innocence was really what was behind it. But this music became the soundtrack to my life. This music became the soundtrack to a lot of people's lives. And, and now people go, oh, the 80s, whatever. But no, when you lived it, it was amazing. When you connected with it, it was amazing. But let's go back to KROQ, because then I want to talk about the CD that I have right now. With KROQ, I still meet people today. I've met people through this I Listen to KROQ in the early 80s Facebook group, and wonderful people, absolutely wonderful people. I think that they might think that I'm a little odd, but then who doesn't? But I dig these people, and I'd love to every month get together and just talk 80s or play 80s or just hang out, because these are people I didn't know back in the 80s, but these are just great people now. And I'm sure none of them will watch this video, but I'm still not going to name any of them. But they're the people that are going to understand the CD I'm going to show you right now. Because this particular CD, it may not be the best of the 80s, but KROQ played stuff that got played everywhere else eventually. The Fix, Flock of Seagulls, like I said, OMD, bands like that. And this is all glorious. You can go to any record store across the U.S. and find that stuff. But there were certain things that KROQ played that seemed to have been only played in Southern California. And some of that stuff that was super rare and hard to get, and maybe only on 7-inch or on 12-inch singles, whatever, were compiled on the CD called the Obscurity File. And this came out on Oleo Records. And this is a time capsule for anybody who loved KROQ back in the day. And I'm talking late 70s, early 80s, not the mid 80s. This is back when it was still almost kind of dangerous, music. The first couple Cure albums, before they became really big. The first couple Depeche Mode albums before they became really big. Now, none of that stuff is here. But back then, when that stuff was new, this stuff was new. And this CD here, now it's got a couple songs that were more Dr. Demento, like Ogden Etzel, Kinko the Clown, the Rodeo Song by Burden McDonald, and Funky Poodle, and things like that. But this has some songs that were KROQ classics. Now, in the flashback 80s, they never really played them. I mean, let's just talk about the songs like Pajama Party, Unit 3 with Venus. Oh, my God. The Little Girls with the Earthquake song. These are songs that Rodney and the Rock would play. And then they eventually filtered into daytime radio. But who else? Angel and the Reruns, Buffy Come Back to Me, Klondike Carl, Time is a Tiki-Talk. Brian Briggs, See You on the Other Side, the Bollock Brothers, Harley Davidson, LAX, the song called Ronnie's Song, the Vandals, Urban Struggle. You got Scott Goddard, Cowpunk. These were songs that were played all the time on KROQ, and you can't find them anywhere except on this CD, or if you find like the original vinyl. This is a title that I recommend anybody who loves that kind of exciting period in music, the late 70s and early 80s, when artists would just do whatever they did. And it didn't have to fall into a certain genre. And KROQ would pick up on it. The audiences would pick up on it. And they would play this stuff quite a bit on the radio. And it was amazing. It was exciting. And to get some of that stuff on CD, now, not everything. Now, the songs I told you about, this has those plus a few more. But what I've done, especially for my old KROQ friends and people who love 80s music in particular, I made a medley. It's a little under 3 minutes, featuring highlights from a lot of the songs on this. I didn't put the Dr. Demeno. How come I can never remember that name? I didn't put the Dr. Demeno stuff on here. I just put the stuff that was really geared towards 80s. And it's really fun. And you can't take any of it seriously because it was an exciting time. It was a time where artists experimented. And it's just wonderful, wonderful stuff. So what I want you to do is take a few moments, sit back, relax, give this a listen, and I will see you on the other side.
P-A-J-A-M-A Pajama party. P-A-J-A-M-A Pajama party. We're all just teenage gentlemen, nurses in bondage. Teenage gentlemen, nurses in bondage. Teenage gentlemen, nurses in bondage. Teenage gentlemen, nurses.
So long, mate. I'll see you on the other side.
Tell the line what you not, what you got a chicken to walk a left cock, this not still a clock, check time, score time, war time, no more talk, it's war time.
I want to be a cowboy. I'm going to be a cowboy. I'm born to be a cowboy. I want to be a cowboy. A cowboy!
It's always fun living in LA. Always good show. One time wherever, what can I say? It's gonna be a hit, but I can't miss it, no way.
A cowboy, oh that girl's much too good. She's cowboy, she's cowboy.
Elvis Presley rode his Harley, smoking lots of shit. Before he died, it was Jim Morrison's last wish. Marlon Brando rode his Harley, that wild son of a bitch. His name is Ronnie. Hollywood actor. Thinks he is a cowboy, a real John Wayne type. Polyester suits, white shoes, rope, Palm Springs, Orange County, Knott's Berry Farm, sometimes Disneyland.
Buffy, Buffy, come back to me. Why'd you have to go and OD? Who will watch over Mrs. Beasley? Yeah, Buffy, Buffy, come back to me. Why'd you have to go and OD? What about Uncle Bill, Jody, and Sissy?
Well, that is it for Obscurity File. It's a really great CD. It's out of print, but I still recommend you, if you stumble across it, to find it. It's really a wonderful CD full of just classic, weird little alternative tracks from KROQ's heyday. KROQ just helped shape a lot of people's lives and the way that they listen to music today. I love that station up until 85, 86. And then instead of being a leader, they became a follower. And that's when I lost interest in KROQ. But I'm perfectly fine that people listen to it far beyond the date that I stopped. I just hope that maybe people can connect with what I talked about. It doesn't have to be KROQ. It could be any radio station, any artist, any era. But maybe a lot of people understand where I'm coming from when I'm talking about this passion that I have for music. And the reason I make these silly videos on YouTube, it's because I love to talk about music. And I love the fact that maybe sometimes somebody might actually pay attention and actually say, I want to check that band out, or I want to check that release out. I hope you do that with this. But seriously, I appreciate the time that you took to watch this video. It means the world to me. And remember to like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell for future notifications. And until the next time, remember me. I'm Steve SCHNEE, the 80s Junkie.